welcome back to my music theory course. Today we're going to be talking about rests. Rests are just like notes in music. Rests have different kinds of beats. There's different kinds of rests. And before I talk to you about the grouping of them, let's just go through some of the different kinds of rests that you'll see in music. So we have a quarter rest. And a quarter rest is similar to the quarter note. We have an eighth rest. And an eighth rest is similar to the eighth note. That's a 16th rest. And there's your 16th note. We also have half rests, and there's your half note, and then hanging from the lines you'll see a whole rest, and that's similar to your whole note. Of course you can go farther down with the flags and you can get three tails on it or three flags on it, and that'll be a 30-second rest, and you can even add one more and have a 64th rest. So there's a variety of rests that correspond to the same amount of beats as their notes will. But there are some special ways that we group these rests. There's some do's and don'ts depending on the time signature that you're in. And in your notebook, or your workbook on page 56, it goes over some of those ways. And the first time signature that we look at is 3/4 time. And I'm not going to do this on staff paper, I'm just going to freeform notate it. One example that they gave here is they have two quarter notes. So there's beat 1 and beat 2. Now we're looking for beat 3, but they have given us in the sample a 16th note. Now when we're adding rest to music, you have to first finish off the rest of the beat. So if I used a 16th note there, I'm going to need to add a 16th rest, and a 16th and a 16th equal or equivalent to an 8th note. But we're looking for quarter notes to get a full beat. So now I have to add to that rest, and an 8th note and another 8th note would equal the quarter note we're looking for. So I'm going to add an 8th rest. So that would finish off beat 3. So as you see, I looked at the final note that they gave, and I had to deal with that smallest note first and then add the remaining amount. So that's working from left to right. We can also work from right to left. Let's say in another sample, they wanted you to add a rest at the beginning of the bar, and they put the 16th note here, and then you have a quarter and a quarter. So we know beat 1 is going to be here, we have beat 2, and we have beat 3, but we're looking to add rests in here. So working from right to left, we have to finish off the 16th note, so we're going to add a 16th rest. So it's got two flags on it. So now a 16th and a 16th are equivalent to an 8th. We're looking for a quarter. So an 8th and an 8th would equal a quarter. So we're going to add an 8th rest. So now we've completed beat 1 for adding rest. So you always need to finish off the beats, the part of the beat that you see the smallest portion, and then add the rest to it. Working from left to right, or even right to left, and finishing them off. Now, 4/4 time though, we're going to deal with this a little differently. There's an incorrect way to write our rest. Let's say we had a quarter note, beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, and beat 4. This would be an incorrect way to add rests in 4/4 time. We need to group the rest into larger groups. So the correct way, this one's wrong, for 4/4 time, if we're given a note And remember from our grouping of notation in the previous chapter, how in 4/4 time we want to see two sections. So you can group beats 1 and 2, and you group beats 3 and 4. So we follow those rules in 4/4 time when we're adding rests as well. So if they've given you a quarter note, you do have to finish off that grouping. There's your group of 1, beats 1 and 2. But now we know for beats 3 and 4, we don't want to see individual beats. We want to see them grouped. So you're actually going to use a half rest. And so now we have this invisible line here showing that we've grouped beats 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 together. So that would be the correct way to group your rests in 4/4 time. Having all individual beats in your rests in 4/4 time is the incorrect way to do it. Okay, so we'll erase this one. Yeah, there's another way to work this too, 4/4 time, and they're showing you the sample at the bottom here. We have a beat 1, and then they've given us a rest in the middle. Well, there's beat 1, a half rest has 2 counts to it, so beats 2 and 3, and then for beat 4, we have another note. Now this is an incorrect way to group it. We never group beats 2 and 3 together. So if you were given a piece of music and they asked you to add rests, and they gave you a note here, and under this bracket they wanted you to add rests, but they also gave you a note here, so beats 1, 2, 3, and 4, because we never group beats 2 and 3 together, you're going to have to do individual beats, 2 quarter rests, and keep them separate. So this would be the correct way to notate the rests in 4/4 time for beats 2 and 3. And we'll erase this one. I'm going to take you to the next page in the series. So page 57 if you're following along in your books. And they just give a few more samples for 3/4 time, which is very important for us to note. So we're looking for 3 beats in the bar and quarter counts. So one example here was we have a half rest. This is beats 1 and 2, and then they give you a quarter note. Now later on in the next theory books, in course in book 2 and onwards, this would be considered correct. You can group beats 1 and 2 in 3/4 time. However, if you're taking an exam with this in the Theory 1 book, they don't want you to notate to group the beats 1 and 2 together. Instead, you would notate it with 2, well, we're starting with the rest. You would notate it with individual counts, beats 1 and 2, and then they gave you beat 3. So this is the required way. Keep them separate in 3/4 time. And at a later date, we'll be doing the groupings of 1 and 2. So it's not technically wrong, but you would get it wrong on this particular examination. Okay, and then farther to that, we're in 3/4 time again. Their sample, they gave you a quarter note, and we have another half rest. So here we have beat 1, beat 2, and beat 3. This is an incorrect format. We're not going to be grouping beats 2 and 3 together. Rather, and I'll just put an X here, rather we're going to see individual grouping for individual beats. There are beat 1, beat 2, beat 3. So in 3/4 time, again, if we're missing the last 2 beats, you still are going to have 2 individual rests. You are not going to group them in that half rest. So the only one that you're really going to watch for is when you're in 4/4 time. Remember, we want to see 2 groups, beats 1 and 2 and beat 3 and 4 for that bar. You are never going to connect beats 2 and 3. Instead, it would be better to do 2 quarter rests in there. Okay, so again, if you have any questions about the grouping of your rests, please feel free to send me a note and I'll be happy to help you. Thanks very much.